I actually have another question for you, Ágnes, which is the one that I'd like to hear. And since we were talking about how Soto influenced and how he was influenced, what was his, in kinetic art and optical art, which is also here something that was brought up in one of the two texts that we have in the catalog, the difference between these two movements. But obviously Soto was involved in both, even though we know him as a kinetic artist.
He resisted to be called as an optical artist,
Exactly.
Especially after the responsive eye here in New York.
So,
yeah,
that's exactly the view, his role in these two specific
So on the relationship
movements.
of kinetic and op art, he insisted that he has to do with kinetic art, and especially after the MoMA's responsive eye show, the Z show, which he felt, as many other artists felt, that basically commercialized the kind of interest in optical perception, phenomenology, time, optical illusionism, etc. He felt that, you know, Zeltz and the MoMA turned optical art, and anyone who had interest in spatio-temporal kind of expansion of painting through a new kind of optical effect, they turn it into basically kind of, you know, corporate office decors and gadgets. If you are watching, or you have been watching Mad Men, the television series, the 5th season, they actually, or the 4th season, and they are revamping their offices on Madison Avenue. We are in 1965 or 6. And it's Bridget Riley rip-off paintings on that painting, the advertising agency's office, which not if Soto would have not been perfect for as corporate decoration. Like Donald Judd was also perfect for corporate decoration, so I don't want to kind of separate him from this idea that optical and kinetic works both became commodified in the 60s and the 70s, both in Europe, in the United States, and in Latin America. But he still wanted to be separated from op art, and when in '65, Simon made him into the, what was the title of the band show in the Kunsthalle, Harald Simon curated it, Jesus. Light und Light and Movement, yeah. Light and Movement was 65, the band Kunsthalle show. Soto was there with over 40 works. It was almost his personal solo exhibition. He was the main hero in it. And then Simon brought the show over to Brussels. And in Brussels, the curators there wanted to add a bunch of paintings. And then Soto said that he actually wrote a letter, a very angry letter, saying that if you add op art stuff more to the show, so the show will be more a kind of gadget-driven decorative painting thing, then I would like to withdraw my own works. And then in Brussels they said, no, the show remains as it was on view in Bern. So, and then he absolutely, very strictly alienated himself from op art and said,
he did not participate in the responsive eye exhibition, right?
For the same reason.
And he turned down the
yes,
exhibition.
yeah, and we are getting into I spent a lot of time since yesterday early afternoon thinking about how to situate him, and I felt really kind of, you know, I felt it's a very unjust thing that you asked me such a difficult question. How can we separate
But that's because I like you.
Yeah. How can we separate Soto from the rest of kinetic art and op art? You know, it's not a small question. One can write 5 PhD dissertation on it. But I have 4 answers, and I'm answering with 4 quotes. Okay? And the first quote is by Soto, and it's from an interview which was published with Carlos Diaz Sosa. It was published in El Nacional in Caracas, which is a newspaper in Caracas, in August 1st, 1966, when he says, and that follows up on what Ariel already said, that I consider myself a kinetic painter. I consider myself a kinetic, which is pretty amazing. What is a kinetic painter? And I actually fully agree with you that whatever he is doing, what he does is everything. It's writing as a notational system, music as a notational system. It's about making systems and undoing them. It's fully multisensorial. It's so sensual, his hand in the film. It's about sound, it's installation, it's 3D, yet, look around, he never gets away from not painting as a medium or as an institution. He gets away from that. But painting as a kind of structural setup. Painting which is about optical illusionism. He brings that to the space, but that remains with him for the rest of his life, right? That's one thing. And the second, that planes and 3D. Look at that, every single work which is here. You look at the cubo, and you see it from the side, and you see it as a serial planes, randomly organized, right? This kind of negotiation between pictorial plane versus three-dimensional space is absolutely constantly present in what he does. So I believe that although it's a paradox, I consider myself a kinetic painter, but that separates him from, say, Guido Lepage, who was very happy when Jean-Claude said in 1967 in the first issue of Rocco, right, the magazine, that la peinture had fini, right? Painting is over. Soto never fully, militantly distinguished himself from painting. So that's my first answer. That's the difference. He's unique in that, I think. You want to say something now, or you want to wait for the rest? So that was the first point, that his engagement with painting as a structural kind of, inquiry. That's, I think, a good way of putting it. The second, he says, and that was quoted already, that's the 67 Opus Studio International article, he says that my work is essentially relationship. These relationships might be seen as the product of chance. They cannot be foreseen. They come by chance, following the laws of chance. It might seem strange to talk about the laws of chance, but chance events do not happen independently of laws. It's really interesting. Like being a kinetic painter, the laws of chance, right? He's interested in paradoxes. It's just that these laws are difficult to discover. This is why we call them the laws of chance. It is my goal to discover these laws. Why chance is important? Because if you think about Gruppo M or Gruppo T, Italian artist group, engaged in participation, objects, kinetic objects, ludic play, right? To push the button and the work does something. Think about Grave, right? Whoever you think about cruise jails, when there is an aspect, all these artists work with programmed things. There is arte programmata, as it was called in Italy in the early 60s, right? There are systems. Think about the Grave people, François Morelli, Joel Stein. There is always this kind of systemic, programmed, arranged nature in their work. No one, as far as I know, from the 1960s classical kinetic artist was inviting chance and randomness through the performative engagement with the work, right? But we saw. He could not recalculate the sounds, the movements. There's a lot of randomness. That's why suspension is important for him. That's why the randomness of the positioning of those sticks is important for him. So I think that this resistance to the fully programmed mechanical thing, that inviting the accident through the performativity of the piece itself is another very important difference. And I'm simplifying things a little bit, but how can I answer this question without simplifying things, right? Third one, and we're going into politics. This is from a telegram he sent to, who did he send it to? Denis René. This is 1969, summer of 69, July. Denis René had a group show. And Julio Lepage, I don't want to be vulgar, but the shitty competition between Julio Lepage and Soto. This is Helio Sika writing to Lygia Clark, right? The competition between Julio Lepage and Soto going on in Paris after, Lepage's win at the Venice Biennale, the Grand Prix in 66. That was a constant kind of element. Julio Lepage decided to put a text on the wall of Gallery de l'Israël. Ideological text, political text, manifestos. This is a year after May 68 in Paris. This is a year after, as you know, Julio Lepage finished the group Grave, because he said that let's dignify ourselves that art can be politics. Art cannot be politics, the politics is happening on the street. And Julio Lepage collaborated with the Atelier Populaire, right? So this is what Soto had to say about this idea that Julio Lepage will include text on the wall of the gallery. It's actually beautiful. Let's not confuse the sacrifice of dead Guevara in the Bolivian jungle with the lazy pamphlet makers of Paris. With a bit of talent and clear convictions, we can be artists and revolutionaries at the same time. Please exhibit my telegram. It is pretty good, right? Che Guevara shot, dead, assassinated, and the lazy pamphlet makers in Paris. I'm actually lying there because it was very easy to to seem radical. Actual radicalism, actual politics versus. It's a very complex question. Very complex, and I do think that we should take Julio Lepage seriously. I don't want to kind of set this up against him, but I also think that what we were talking about, the possibility of thinking about every work and the disturbance in the work, the sensorial dislocation, it is more political in a sense than writing political manifestos. Or his politics was a very different politics. It was not about manifestos. So I think that that's a major difference, because, and it's a very important one. And the fourth one is a very short quote, and it is from the Jean Clay article you already quoted. Jean Clay speaks about the penetrables, actually, in 67. This is the Israeli catalog. He says, the work hits into the real, it encroaches on our feeling of space, it questions our idiosyncrasy. Soto's infernal machine threatens the whole space we move around in, the space where we used to feel safe. I love this because, Soto is threatening. And that's why it's only the children who are not paying attention. They are just having fun. But, I moved on in DC, in the Soto. It was very unpleasant. It is unpleasant. You're not having fun. With a Lepage mirror piece, oh, it's enchanting, it's spectacular, it's a beautiful escapist, illusionism. Cruz Diaz too, right? Soto, and that's my fourth point, what Clay said, it's threatening, it's disturbance, but not in an easy, spectacular way. And so none of these are just budgets. I love Lepage. I love François Morelli. I mean, I'm not trying to set him up against, but when you're differentiating things, it's important to realize, and I think that what he does is tough. It is tough. It is not pretty, and it totally resists the spectacularization of interaction, right? And the easy play. So I think that these are the four quotes, these are the 4 points I'm trying to make, and I'm very, very curious to hear what you have to say about that.
I think the last point especially, I think, is something that often goes, maybe not unnoticed, but unsaid about Soto. Is kind of, they're very aggressive works. And I think with respect to the response, and I think this is something that a lot of people responded to about, especially optical art, like Bridget Riley, because the term op art was a play on pop art, but the term comes from Time magazine, and the full headline was op art, pictures that attack the eye. And I think if you look at Soto's, even not just the penetrable, which you have to you are forced to make your way through as a picture base, and I think as playful as they can be, it's a kind of it's almost coerced playfulness, so to speak. But even the vibraciones or the informative escrituras, it's difficult to look at them. You look at them and they're steering. The combination and interference of the lines, the striated lines and the dissolving, is a very kind of aggressive, not just, I mean, we kind of consider it an assault on the object, possibly, but it's very much an assault on the eyes. I mean, you can't look at them for very long without getting dizzy.
And they're not big. You said that it's low tech. It's important that they are not. I mean, think about Lunare, the Italians, the beautiful plexi objects, or, there is no finish fetish, there is the prettiness, the beauty of, I mean, the low tech, what you already mentioned, is extremely important. It's not that they want to look trashy, they don't look trashy. They are well-made, but they do not emphasize in an extreme way, right? It's not a glory of industrial aesthetics, never.
I don't know if Soto saw the same, but I did ask Lepage, why he hadn't used better technology in a way to create the work, and he said it wasn't necessary because he never wanted the technology to overcome the artwork. So in a way, the use of these ordinary materials, the way things are put together in a very simple manner, is so you can focus on the work itself. And perhaps that's why the idea of using motors and things like that wasn't as interesting to Soto as it was to other artists.